If you only know Jackie Chan as a goofy martial arts comedian from the Rush Hour and Shanghai Noon series, then consider this a wake-up call. Because when Jackie did things his way on his home turf, he churned out some of the most brutal, gritty ballet of violence ever to be seen. Stemming from his big brother in Peking opera, Sammo Hung, Sammo's amazing career in stunts brought forth the performance art of weapons form, mixing in random props along with some actual contact on hits. Jackie was able to follow in Sammo's footsteps and make a name for himself with his own brand of athletics. Then Jackie would turn the volume up to 11 by adding in some daredevil stunts. Many would point to Drunken Master 2 as Jackie's magnum opus, and that is an all-timer, but for an example of his best modern-day martial arts action, mixed in with some crime drama and his signature comedy, one of his absolute best outings is 1985's Police Story. And action. In the 1970s, Jackie Chan soared to fame internationally once he was finally able to break out of the shadow of Bruce Lee. When Chan had started getting starring roles at the beginning of his career, martial arts cinema was in the middle of a Bruceploitation phase, where imitators were used and promoted to be Bruce Lee in a shameless copycat manner. Unfortunately for Jackie, he was forced into the same kind of roles, even casting him in the sequel to Lee's Fist of Fury titled New Fist of Fury. He played the brother to Lee's character. It was an obvious misstep. When Jackie was finally able to do his own style, mixing in his biggest influences like Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd, he took the world by storm, and well, the rest is history. It seems like the best of Jackie usually came after tone-deaf producers tried to make him into something he's not. More on that later. When Police Story came around, it would not be his first non-period martial arts film, but it would be one that felt very contemporary in 1985 Hong Kong cinema. Jackie would play a character named Chan Ka Kui in the original Chinese version, but in the international versions, he's known as Kevin Chan. Casual fans might know this character from Super Cop, released in America by Dimension Films, but this movie is where it all originated, since Super Cop is actually Police Story 3 Super Cop. Just bear with me. Chan is a Hong Kong cop who is part of an elite task force that's assigned to fight organized crime. Right off the bat, as the opening credits end, we're thrust right into the case. The Big Sting operation introduces us to the key characters. The boss, Chu, has many business ventures but is bleeding money, so he's turned to drug dealing and always has his nephew Danny handling his dirty work. He also has a newly appointed secretary, Selena Fong, played by Bridget Lin. The undercover sting is immaculately planned, and many officers have a detailed role in a shantytown village, where a big deal is about to go down. It all goes to shit, and the police find themselves in a gunfight in the middle of the village. Chan takes the initiative to go after the fleeing suspects, and what follows is one of the most iconic chases ever put to celluloid. What first transpires is a car chase through the shantytown village, and when I say through, I mean straight through. Each car cuts through buildings, demolishing everything down the hill. Again, this scene may look familiar to casual audiences. More on that later. Chan eventually loses his car, as would Chu and his men. Then they would go on to hijack a bus, and Chan would chase it down on foot. The second iconic part of this sequence is when Chan catches up and hooks himself onto the bus. He hangs on for dear life as he tries to avoid cars and ward off the attackers. Chan gets kicked away, and the third iconic part happens when he takes a shortcut through a hill, cuts the bus off down the road, and plays chicken with the driver. It all culminates in one of the most dangerous stunts. The bus stops just before Chan and hurls the criminals out of the front windows. As Chan finally apprehends Chu and his cohorts, his superiors decide to release his secretary Selena in an attempt to get a solid case out of her. They assign Chan to protect her from any attempts on her life from Chu to keep her silent. However, Selena keeps refusing Chan's security at every turn. In a hilarious sequence of classic Jackie humor, Chan has one of his fellow officers pose as a killer trying to off Selena while he fakes an attempt to rescue her. It more or less goes smoothly. But it works, as Selena now sticks by Chan's side seeking his protection. And not a moment too soon. They get ambushed for real when Chu sends a gang of goons to kill both Chan and Selena. It's not a long fight, but what Jackie's able to do with the sequence located in between two crashed cars really shows off his creativity.
The two more stunt guy up there and go through another two window. Once the guy hit here, another stunt guy hit here, hit the hood. The stunt guy tried to go, but the car going back. So all the kind of lost the balance. I know something going on, but I still have to finish the whole shot.
They escape with their lives, and Selena goes into protective custody at Chan's apartment. Here, we're introduced to a staple of the franchise where Chan's work always conflicts with his relationship with his girlfriend May, played by Maggie Chung. Poor May always seems to catch Chan in the most inopportune times, as she sees him with Selena still sporting her sexy negligee. Chan gets a birthday cake to the face, and in a bit of gratuitous posturing, Chan shows off his bare ass when getting cleaned up. Although, if you're an action star in the 80s, it's just in your contract to show off your finely tuned butt.
I'm just taking one of those unmotivated butt in the moonbeam walks.
Eventually, Chu gets his freedom, and with all the trouble that the police had put him through, he puts Chan's super cop through the ringer, framing him for murder. The last act of the movie has Jackie playing things rather seriously. He rarely makes any jokes, and his character is out for justice. This sets up one of the greatest finales of his entire career. Selena goes on the run with a briefcase full of evidence of Chu's dealings. She seeks refuge at a mall. Chu, his nephew Danny, and his many henchmen chase her down. Chan catches up and fights with all of them in one of the most brutal finales in action movie history. You get kind of the signature Jackie Chan prop fighting, except here it's not played for laughs, it's played for violence. So much glass is broken during this sequence, Jackie has said the crew started calling the movie Glass Story during filming. And the whole scene gets capped off with one of Jackie's most dangerous stunts ever, where he slides down a 4-story pole lit up with decorative lights and falls into a children's playhouse. This scene alone is what made me a fan of his. It's pure, unadulterated fighting at its best. It's also a best example of what separates Jackie from the other action stars who fight multiple attackers at once. In most action movies, especially martial arts films, the enemies usually come at the hero one at a time, almost like they're taking turns, while the others seem to wait. Here, Chan gets attacked from every direction at once, and can barely keep up with fending off every attacker. Police Story was spawned from Jackie making his second attempt at breaking through to the American market. His first attempt was the 1980 film Battle Creek Brawl. Jackie clashed with the director of that film, Robert Klaus, director of Enter the Dragon and real action classic China O'Brien. He hated how they specifically brought him over to the States based on his Hong Kong film work, but never let him control his action sequences. The same thing would happen with his second attempt, the 1985 film The Protector, which co-starred Danny Aiello. With this one, they tried to make him too much like a tough New York cop like Clint Eastwood, and gave him tough guy lines with uncharacteristic profanity.
Get the hell out of here! What are you doing? Give me the fucking keys.
This one falls into the lower echelon of 80s action movies. He was again not in control of his action scenes, and felt they'd left no room for his creativity and were rather dull. Before Jackie even premiered The Protector in Hong Kong, he actually reshot the fights to his own satisfaction. And filmed an entire subplot not present in the American version. The only thing Jackie gives the Protector credit for is giving him the inspiration for Police Story. Whereas Jackie had played cops before, Police Story was the best of both worlds. There would be a gritty crime story that involved political red tape of the Hong Kong police force, along with a more grounded villain, mixed with some of the humorous situations that Jackie likes to weave into his movies. Not only did Police Story change the face of Hong Kong action cinema, but its influence is evident in Hollywood films. In 1989's Tango and Cash, Stallone gives a shout-out to Jackie with a sequence in the beginning that's nearly a shot-for-shot recreation of the bus stunt. Complete with the criminals getting launched through the windshield. Then, in 1992's Rapid Fire, Brandon Lee was a professed fan of Jackie's, and used the stunt where he rams a guy with a motorcycle right through multiple panes of glass. In 2003, Michael Bay used the entire Shantytown Hill sequence in Bad Boys 2. Again, nearly shot for shot. Jackie would follow up Police Story with 1988's Police Story 2, a worthy follow-up that ultimately doesn't surpass the first, but it does have some stellar action as well. There's a particularly good fight at a children's playground, where Jackie's creativity really takes advantage of the location. Then, 1992 saw Chan team up with Michelle Yeoh for Police Story 3 Super Cop. This film would veer more towards Rambo-like gunplay and explosions than Chan's usual fighting, but the stunts are as dangerous as ever as Jackie hangs from a helicopter, and Michelle Yeoh matches the insanity with her own stunts. In the last entry of the first era of Police Story movies, we get Police Story 4 First Strike. Chan is working as a spy in sort of a James Bond-type adventure. This installment is pretty far removed from the rest and might as well have been its own movie, which New Line released it as, titled Jackie Chan's First Strike in 1996. Jackie would eventually come back to the brand name 2 more times with a standalone reboot called New Police Story. In this, Jackie got rid of the comedy entirely and wanted to show off his dramatic skills, as he played a tortured cop who got his team killed by ex-game rich kid criminals led by Daniel Wu of AMC's Into the Badlands. Chan would do another reboot with Police Story 2013. It would again be a more dramatic film for Jackie, and unfortunately, the film gets severely bogged down by epileptic editing and nauseating shaky cam. The less said, the better. With the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that went into making this movie, it's only right that we paid tribute. Police Story gets 9 out of 10 Stallones. One of the most beautiful and intricate forms of performance art is Chinese Peking opera. The art is an amazing display of physical capabilities. Think of it like if Cirque du Soleil incorporated weapons and martial arts fighting. And it's because of these physical elements that some of the child performers of the theater troupe grew up to become some of the biggest action legends in Hong Kong cinema. Three of the most notable names to graduate from Peking Opera are Yuen Biao, Sammo, and Jackie Chan. These three grew up and trained together as part of the 7 Little Fortunes at the China Drama Academy before starring in their own movies. And one of the most beloved action films in their heyday actually starred all three of them, the 1988 film Dragons Forever. Hit it. The three brothers, as they're referred to, consist of action star and director Sammo, who is the eldest and, literally, the biggest brother. Then Jackie Chan is the middle brother, and the youngest in the group is Yuen Biao. When a new wave of Hong Kong martial arts movies finally found a way to break out of the shadow of Bruce Lee, Sammo and Jackie would forge the path to a new legacy with their brand of acrobatics and comedy incorporated into the action. The three brothers would all work with each other throughout various projects in the 70s, but it wasn't until 1983's Project A that all would co-headline a movie. Project A became a smash hit, and the studio, Golden Harvest, would excitedly ask for more from the Dream Team. The brothers teamed up again for 1984's Wheels on Meals, and the third film in Sammo's Lucky Stars series, 1985's Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars. Then, 1988 saw all three coming together for one final time. And Jackie says the title Dragons Forever is a tribute to them and their friendship. It's not completely known if they intended this to be the conclusion of their collaborative era, but it ended up serving as a swan song for the trio. It was also treated as an opportunity for all of them to do something different. First of all, in addition to being an action comedy, it was also a rom-com that put Jackie and Sammo in rare romantic lead roles. Jackie portrays a character that's a departure from his norm, named Jackie Lung, also known as Johnny Lang in the American export cut. Jackie's character is a sleazy, womanizing defense attorney who usually represents mobsters despite ultimately having a good conscience. Sammo, who normally plays the timid everyman, plays Luke, an arms dealer who's friends with Jackie, and Yuen Biao gets to stretch his comedy muscles as Timothy, another friend of Jackie's, who's an eccentric tech expert with questionable mental stability. The film's plot is anchored by Jackie's new client, a chemical plant business owner named Mr. Hua, played by another Peking Opera graduate, Yen Hua. He's currently in a dispute with a local fishery owner named Miss Yip because the disposal of his chemicals is killing off her fish. The two cannot come to a settlement and decide to take their case to court, and Mr. Hua hires the famed criminal lawyer Jackie Lung. So Jackie, in his savvy but slimy ways, enlists the help of Luke to work his way into Miss Yip's personal life with a romantic entanglement, and then convince her to settle out of court. Luke secures an apartment next door to hers and plays up his clumsy but charming shtick as the new neighbor. Meanwhile, Jackie also visits his friend Timothy to coax him into placing a bug in Miss Yip's apartment. This is where we get a fun glimpse into the chaos of Timothy's world, as everything about his residence is unconventional. We're talking giant light switches, long water tubes for his fish, and his own little bird sanctuary. Here, Biao gets to do some fun rambling on Timothy's personal politics and philosophy, and his roundabout conversation breaks Jackie's brain to the point of brief hysteria. The romantic comedy elements come in not only when Sammo attempts to win over Miss Yip, but Jackie becomes attracted to the head witness in the case, who just happens to be Miss Yip's cousin, Nancy. There are a lot of fun sitcom-type situations that stem from these web of interests, including mistaken identity and sneaking around. Early on, Luke catches Timothy, whom he's never met, sneaking into Miss Yip's place, thinking he's a burglar. We get a fun little scuffle between Sammo and Biao. And you'd think the gesture of stopping a burglar would win over Miss Yip, but it isn't enough to break down her barriers, and she keeps rejecting Sammo's advances. Meanwhile, Miss Yip convinces Nancy to use Jackie in, coincidentally, the same way Jackie's using Luke to manipulate her, so Nancy begrudgingly accepts Jackie's offer for dinner. And it's during this dinner scene that we get a classic slapstick comedy sequence. Jackie's trying to put on a romantic date for Nancy, but he gets interrupted by both Timothy and Luke. Jackie is scrambling around to hide not only Timothy from Nancy, but also Luke from Nancy. And if that wasn't enough, the two men run into each other and reignite their feud, then just start fighting right there in Jackie's apartment. So now, Jackie finds himself trying to separate them while hiding them from Nancy. Despite doing several movies together, Dragons Forever is the first and only time you get to see Jackie, Sammo, and Biao fight each other in three-way battles. The movie hits the usual rom-com story beats as Luke eventually wins over Miss Yip, and Jackie wins over Nancy. We even get a love ballad during a romantic montage. The action gets incorporated mostly because Mr. Hua is also in a conflict with rival gangs, and they include targeting his lawyer Jackie in coordinated attacks. In another great sequence, we get Jackie fighting off a gang of thugs while he and Nancy are dining on a yacht. The location provides for some creative Jackie parkour. He runs up and jumps around the yacht's staircases and walkways, trying to evade the thugs, and incorporates the furniture in traditional Chan fashion. But the film seals itself as a worthy entry into the Three Brothers' filmography with the finale at the chemical plant. Luke and Tim investigate a suspicion that more is going on with Mr. Hua's business. They sneak into the main operation area where they discover that not only do they deal in pollution, but they deal in drugs as well. Sammo gets shortchanged in this finale, but it could possibly be because he also pulls double duty as the director and wanted to concentrate more behind the camera. Timothy returns to the plant with Jackie, and it becomes an amazing battle royal with Mr. Hua and all his thugs. Biao really gets the chance to shine here, as he moves with swiftness that seems inhuman, and he makes it look way too easy. Watch how he jumps right through a small opening in a broken window without touching anything. The choreography is pretty on point for 80s Hong Kong action, but the falls in particular that the stunt team take in the finale are some of the most brutal sells in these movies. The main event becomes a one-on-one fight between Jackie and Mr. Hua's main muscle, played by the delightfully sinister, dark-eyed Benny the Jet Urquidez. The two had already fought in what's been called one of the best one-on-one fights in martial arts films, when they squared off in the finale of Wheels on Meals. This was a welcome rematch that's less comedic than the previous fight, and has a more raw, angry energy to it. Not many place this fight above the Wheels on Meals one, but it's still a damn good one. Dragons Forever sounds like it would be another slam dunk hit for Golden Harvest, but it actually underperformed. Hong Kong film expert Bay Logan feels it may have been because the stars were playing against type that might have turned audiences away. According to Jackie's autobiography, by the time they got to Dragons Forever, there had been a growing tension between the three brothers that had hit a critical mass. Just prior to this film, Jackie's superstardom skyrocketed even further after he had a major hit with his film Police Story. Sammo felt overshadowed by Jackie's worldwide success, and Yuen Biao also felt he needed to forge his own path, so the three had gone their separate ways after this film. The tension would die down as time went on, and Jackie would work with Sammo again when Sammo directed and appeared in 1997's Mr. Nice Guy. Then the two would fight side by side when Sammo made a cameo in Jackie's 2004 movie Around the World in 80 Days as Wong Fei-hung. Then at one point, it was rumored that the three would have a reunion in Jackie's 2006 film Rob B. Hood, but for whatever reason it didn't work out, although Jackie would still have a small reunion with Yuen Biao for a scene. In 2021, it was reported that Sammo will be making a biopic of the Seven Little Fortunes, and the troupe recently came together for an emotional reunion event. Dragons Forever took time to build a following, but it now sits comfortably alongside some of the classics in Golden Harvest's prime era. And it would recently be given the 4K Ultra HD remastering treatment with a 2-disc special edition courtesy of 88 Films, so if you haven't seen it, check it out.
We've had Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, and Seagal here on Real Action, but it's about time we got to the most gloriously insane action star of them all, Jackie Chan. An international superstar longer than most of us have been alive, it wasn't until 1995's ridiculously over-the-top Rumble in the Bronx that Chan broke out into the American market with his unique daredevil style that often ended with him in the hospital. Steven Seagal ain't got nothing on that.
Can I laugh in your face?
To get an idea of just how insane Rumble in the Bronx is, all you need to know is that at one point, Chan's character, Hong Kong cop Kyung, tries to outrun a hovercraft, but just before he's smushed, he tosses away a baby he had just rescued like she was a sack of potatoes. What the F? This type of mad action was the norm for Chan back in Hong Kong, but it had never been done here in the States, and we were shook. While the title might be Rumble in the Bronx, it only takes a fraction of a second to realize, hey, this ain't no Bronx anybody has ever seen before. That's because it's actually Vancouver. Director Stanley Tong does his best to try and convince you otherwise with the occasional bit of stock footage, but nah, that's not happening. The ridiculous plot has Chan's Kyung visiting the Bronx to attend his favorite Uncle Bill's wedding, only to get sidetracked by a biker gang that destroys his bodega. The shop gets sold to the ambitious but soon-to-be exasperated Elaine, played by the late great Hong Kong superstar Anita Mui. But the attacks keep getting worse, turning the store into what looks like a food fight had taken place inside of a hurricane. Never have so many bags of potato chips been harmed in a single movie. Kyung, who we know is really a badass because, I mean, look at the way he beats up this Makawara, takes on the gangs himself in a series of bizarre and comical confrontations. Some lost diamonds enter the picture, which brings in some mobbed up goons, and naturally the oversized guy with the ponytail, because there's always at least one in every 90s action flick. Toss in an irritatingly precocious disabled kid and a love interest half Kyung's age, and you've got a pretty good idea of what Chan thought American moviegoers wanted to see. To be fair, he wasn't wrong. Rumble in the Bronx's importance not only to Chan's career, but the representation of Asian actors in America can't be understated. Sure, it's a wildly enjoyable, zany flick in the Jackie Chan style, but it wasn't easy. Chan was already 41 years old at this time, and had put his body on the line in dozens of movies. But breaking into Hollywood was tough, and attempts to do so by taking bit parts in 1981's Cannonball Run or 1985's buddy cop flick The Protector were failures. Chan was determined to come to the United States as a leading man to rival the likes of Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Norris, and others, and refused to settle for less. When Stallone offered him the Simon Phoenix role in Demolition Man, he turned it down. Jesus, as awesome as that turned out with Wesley Snipes, how great could it have been with Jackie Chan? I don't know if there's more of a pure Jackie Chan movie than Rumble in the Bronx. Sure, some of his native stuff has crazier stunts, but here we see the full scope of his cheerful, buoyant, nice guy personality, and the hyper-stylized action is pretty wild. Whether he's sliding around on furniture to avoid the baddies, batting them over the head with a refrigerator door, or leaping 28 feet from building to building without a frickin' harness. Yeah, that guy has lost his damn mind. Roger Ebert famously compared Chan's fancy footwork to that of Fred Astaire, as it seemed like he was literally dancing around his opponents with ease. If only he could have sung in the rain too. While the fights are played up for laughs, they do take a serious turn at one point in a scene that's always stuck with me. After being chased all around the city, Kyung is finally cornered in an alley. Those damn Vancouver streets! Where the gang proceeds to batter up glass bottle after glass bottle at his face, leaving him bloodied and unconscious. On the one hand, this is a cool way to protect Chan's image by not having him lose in a straight up fight, but it's also just a really novel way of taking down the hero. I mean, where did they get all of those bottles? Raid a recycling center? The film was directed by Stanley Tong, who had worked with Chan before on Police Story 3 and spin-off Once a Cop. They would go on to team up a few more times afterwards, but have reconnected of late with 2020's Vanguard and Kung Fu Yoga in 2017. Tong is another example of a Hong Kong filmmaker who tried to crack into Hollywood in the 90s. But unlike John Woo, he never found any real success outside of Rumble in the Bronx. His only English language effort, because Rumble features some truly horrendous dubbing, was 1997's Mr. Magoo with Leslie Nielsen, and look, the less said about that the better. Tong had a feeling for Chan's chaotic style, capturing better than almost any other director the way he fluidly slides from one nuts maneuver to the next. That hideout battle, in which Kyung takes on the entire gang all by himself, shows director and star in perfect cinematic harmony. That entire sequence, with Chan wedging himself into and out of one doomed predicament after another, left my young jaw on the floor. I imagine it did the same to millions of other boys who were seeing Chan for the first time. If you watch too closely, you'll find a ton of goofs and continuity errors. Also, cultural representation is absolutely atrocious, with many of the characters little more than racial stereotypes. I mean, who's the Native American dude with the head feather? Come on. It was a simpler time, and it sort of adds to the movie's goofy charm.
Shut up! Hey, he's just a kid!
No,
Rumble in the Bronx did what it was designed to do. The film opened #1 at the US box office, earning $32 million, which isn't bad for an R-rated action movie with a non-Hollywood actor. Chan's legend would grow from there, along with his influence on American cinema. He would have other box office smashes here, including the Rush Hour and Shanghai Noon franchises. But more importantly, Chan has become something of a cultural icon. It's hard to imagine a time when we didn't know Jackie Chan existed, and we're all very lucky that Rumble in the Bronx introduced us to his brilliance. Rumble in the Bronx gets 8 out of 10 Stallones. Thank you for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our channel, tell your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. We're an independent company and we appreciate all of your support.